Got me in.
Are we live?
It says we're live. So welcome, guys. We got an awesome roundtable today. I'm Jonathan from Embrace the Grind. We got Scott on Scott's channel, Cole Adams, Jackson from Gem Live, and Gridiron Expert as well. Guys, it's so fun to have all you guys all together.
It's going to be a good time tonight. We got a lot to discuss.
Oh, yes. We've got plenty to talk about. Thanks for that intro, Jonathan. That was awesome.
Yeah, Scott threw that on me like 2 minutes ago.
That's Scott. That's Scott.
That's how I always do it. But I'm going to go ahead and put links to everyone's channel in the comment section or the chat section. And also feel free to leave a question that we can answer. We got a few things to cover first, but then we're just going to answer your guys' questions and talk football all night.
Heck yeah.
All right, Jonathan, we're going to start with you. Who is your favorite Cinderella team so far this year?
I got to go with University of Texas San Antonio. I haven't gotten to watch many of their games, but just the fact that they're 8-0, I remember playing them in the NCAA Football 14 in the Alamo Dome, I think it was at the time. And it was just they're a fun team to see do really well.
I totally agree, and their coach is likely going to take the Texas Tech job here in a couple weeks. What about you, Cole?
Whoa. Rumors. That's just uncalled for. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't blame him for taking that job if it was offered to him. But for my favorite Cinderella team, it's not really a Cinderella team because they're the number 2 team in the nation, but it's the Cincinnati Bearcats. A little bit of a homer pick for myself. But I think that the way they've played this year and the past 2 years, really, the way they've played, they just keep impressing me every single week. Except for this past week against Navy, but I'll cut them some slack for that one. I think that they deserve it. 1 off, and 2, all those Navy Academy members were at that game, and it was loud. And honestly, it was a pretty hostile environment for a 1-5 football team they were going up against. So I'll cut them some slack for that. But overall, I've been really impressed. They've got NFL talent. They've got everything you'd want for a Cinderella team, and they're number 2. So Cincinnati.
I agree. What about you, Alex?
I got to go with Michigan State. I had no expectations for this team whatsoever, and now they're the number 8 team in the country. Very balanced on offense. I love Kenneth Walker III, man. He's one of my Heisman sleepers. No one saw him coming this year. I'll tell you what, if they beat Michigan this Saturday, changes everything. That game against Ohio State in a few weeks is going to be huge. I know we got a couple Michigan guys on here that would disagree with that, but Michigan State, man, coming out of nowhere. I love them.
No, I mean, I got to agree that you took my pick, Alex, but no one really expected this from Michigan State. If anything, Mel Tucker was kind of in over his head last year, a lot of people said, but now he's, rumored to take the LSU job. He's going to be – Michigan State's going to be big time if he stays, but I love Thorne, Walker, Naylor, Reed, all these guys, and I really hope they win the East, but unfortunately, Ohio State's starting to put it together, Penn State's falling off right now. But last guy, Jackson, I assume I know who you're going to pick, right?
No. I'm not gonna be like Cole and be a homer team. I'm sorry, but shout out SDSU, the school I go to, still undefeated. I'm actually gonna keep it in the Big Ten though with Iowa, because that is a team I was not expecting to be anything this year, because I feel like with college football mostly it's kind of ran by stars and really high top tier quarterbacks, high flying offenses, stuff like that, and to watch them rise all the way to second in the nation, even though they just got beat by Purdue, but watch them play the field position, have a steel curtain defense and just kind of shut teams down and in very unconventional college way to be a top team like that. I was expecting Iowa to be fairly bad this year, just because I saw their quarterbacks, some of their weapons, but they seem to piece it together, play some really solid football.
Well, we got Riley Moss. He's a big reason for that.
Number 1, Riley Moss is my hero. The white cornerback, it doesn't get better than that. Put him in the NFL, all right? Put him in the NFL. He belongs.
I agree. So now as we get on to our second part, who is your favorite player in college football right now, Cole?
Well, you know what? Since you brought him up, Riley Moss, despite getting injured recently, obviously, which broke my heart. I was with Scott when he got injured. It was a tragedy, but I would say him. But other than him, I'm going to throw another Bearcat out there, not Desmond Ridder, Sauce Gardner. I think that he's impressed me the most this year for a college football player. I love watching him play. I think he has NFL potential, and he's a big reason why Cincinnati is great. So Sauce Gardner, Ahmad Gardner.
What about you, Jonathan?
So I'm going to stay with Cincinnati. Jerome Ford, especially after I recently did a video on him, going through his backstory. and how he wasn't even technically a starting running back on his own high school football team because there were 2 other 4-star recruits on his team, to then now possibly being a Heisman pick, it's just been awesome to see. But also, when it comes to my Badgers, seeing Braylon Allen, who's 17 years old, doing so well the past few weeks, has also been fun to watch.
That's great.
Yeah, he was insane. He went off against Purdue a couple weeks ago, or last weekend. You guys killed me. All right, Alex, you're up.
We were talking about this beforehand, but my favorite's been Kenny Pickett, man. I've loved watching Kenny Pickett play for Pitt. This guy come out of nowhere. Kind of same with Kenneth Walker, right? I'm convinced, like we were talking about, it's the glove. It's the glove. It's like it's like LeBron with the headband, man. It's one of those things where he's just a completely different player. His draft stock's risen. He's a Heisman contender. Was it like 24, 25 touchdowns and 1 interception? And he's got Pitt at the top of the Coastal right now, pretty much a lock to make that championship game. And if they hadn't lost to Western Michigan, I don't know how you managed to lose to Western Michigan 44-41. But if they hadn't lost to them, they're a top 15 team and maybe a playoff sleeper. But I don't think it's going to happen now. But yeah, Pickett, man, he's a first-round draft pick in my eyes right now.
Same, and it was Caleb Ellaby, the quarterback from Western Michigan. He's some mid-major draft prospect who's flying up the boards. But I'm going to stay in the ACC and pick a name that maybe all you guys aren't familiar with, but Sean Tucker. He actually leads the country in rushing yards right now. He was like a 2-star recruit, was 3rd string coming into this year, and now he's on pace to have the best rushing season in school history for Syracuse. The team's 4-4, and he may single-handedly save Dino Babers' job.
Solid pick.
Jackson, it's now your turn.
All right, I don't want to go too obvious here, but if we're picking our favorite player, my eyes just get glued to the screen when Caleb Williams comes on, just because of the story. I know we kind of talk about how the media I know I'm getting a bunch of head shakes, but sometimes the right answer is just the obvious one. I mean, you have someone that's the Heisman favorite, projected number 1 overall pick. He ends up suck. You go in one of the biggest rivalries in football, the Red River, and then go in there, make a huge comeback. And now he's just making plays as a freshman, carrying that team. And I feel like most people, when they're watching Oklahoma now, they're watching to see what he's going to do. And I can't say that for a ton of other players. But as recently, being able to be a freshman and take over a team that was kind of going to see it as okay, hey, they're not going to be it this year. To have them in the playoff contention and do that, he's so much fun to watch. Sorry, that's if that's too obvious. I know we talk about the media and how it kind of does it, but that dude is if you want to say Mahomes is the most fun person to watch, it's because he is.
I mean, you can't lie. Williams threw that just unbelievable pass to Mims in the Red River rivalry, and then just took the ball from his own running back. I mean, you got to admit the guy's good. He's a good player, but I mean, to say he's a Heisman favorite after playing Kansas on the road, I don't buy it. But I think he's going to be a great player, and Spencer Rattler's going to be headed down to Arizona State. You think that's going to be the case, Cole?
Scott, he's going to be highly sought after, and somebody's going to get him. Who it will be, we don't know, but everybody's at least going to put their name in the hat for Spencer Rattler. I don't know if he ends up there, though, but we'll see.
Look who we got tuning in, Cole.
Oh,
the King.
King. What's up?
King.
Yes, Peyton Thorne's been amazing. Good for him. He's your boy.
Hey, this guy whose comment is on the screen actually went to high school with Peyton Thorne, and he told me last year before Thorne even ever started the game that Thorne was going to lead the way for Michigan State. So shout out to Advait for predicting the future.
Mm-hmm. You knew.
But next topic, who's your sleeper for the playoff? Obviously not an Ohio State or Cincinnati doesn't count anymore because they're in, but a team that's maybe 1 loss undefeated that you think if they go undefeated down the stretch, they could get in maybe. What is your opinion on that, Cole?
Well, I'm still riding out with Ole Miss, and they're pretty high ups, but I really actually believe they could still potentially get in. They have Auburn coming up this week, which they're not favored in that game, but I mean, hey, we'll see what happens. And then they still have Texas A&M and Liberty, if you want to say Liberty's a good game. But Texas A&M's a big one for them. I think that will actually really help because I think that Texas A&M, they're clicking right now. So if they keep pulling off wins until that game and Ole Miss beats Texas A&M, which they're at home for that one. So I just like their schedule remaining. They only have 1 loss, and overall they've impressed me every single week. So I'd still ride with Ole Miss, and they have a Heisman contender. So
yeah, they obviously do. And shout out to Blake from Harris Highlights for tuning in.
Nice.
Good to have you here.
Good to see you, Blake. Welcome.
All right, Jonathan, who is your opinion on a sleeper playoff team?
We mentioned Wake Forest before we got onto the chat, but I know they just lost, but it's more because someone I do a podcast with from time to time is a huge Oklahoma State fan. Oklahoma State has everything in front of them to get back up in the rankings. They still got Oklahoma and some other big matchups still to come, and the Big 12 championship game if they make it there. So I think that's an interesting team to keep an eye on that not a lot of people are talking about.
I agree with you. And Alex, now we got you.
I'll stick in the Big 12, but how about Baylor? And this is Baylor. I mean, Baylor's looking good. Over 500 yards of offense. Dave Aranda's defense. I mean, we knew he was one of the best defensive minds in the game. They still host Texas this Saturday. Still host Oklahoma. They've already beat Iowa State. The only loss was to Oklahoma State. That game was a lot closer than the 10 points really showed. So, if Baylor runs the table, they're going to make the Big 12 championship game, probably have a rematch against Oklahoma. It reminds me a lot of 2019. No one saw Baylor coming. Made that Big 12 championship, and had they beat Oklahoma in overtime, they would have been in the playoffs. And I really think they can do that again this year. This offense is probably one of the best offenses Baylor has had probably since the Art Briles days, really. If you look at them statistically and how well they're running the ball, it's probably the best since the early days when they were playoff contenders. So the schedule is very favorable. They got the biggest games coming at home, and if they win out, I think they're a top 4 candidate for sure.
Yeah, no, I was definitely a skeptic of Aranda. I mean, that offense was, I think, like the 4th worst in the country last year, and I said he was in over his head. So I'll say right now I was completely wrong on that. But they got a lot of fun players, and Baylor needs to beat Oklahoma because I'm tired of Oklahoma winning every game by like 4 points. So someone needs to eliminate the Sooners, and if Kansas had beat them last week, that definitely would have eliminated them. But I'm going to stick with a team that could be headed to the Big 12, SMU. I want to be different from all you guys, but SMU is currently undefeated. Tanner Mordecai leads the country in touchdown passes. The offense is electric. And if they go on the road and beat Cincinnati and finish 13-0, because they would beat Cincinnati twice, I believe, because they'd play them again in the American Championship, how could you leave SMU out? That's all I'm saying.
I understand your argument, but they're not beating Cincinnati.
How can you leave them out? The same way they left UCF out, the same way they left Cincinnati out. These mid-majors don't get as much attention. Come on.
But who did UCF beat back in 2016 or 17?
And here we go.
We go to the bowl game. Oh, we have to have an 8-team college playoff discussion after this. We have to.
Yeah, we definitely have to. It definitely makes me upset because, I turn on the TV and I start seeing, the media people, the big J journalists, as we call them. They're just ripping Cincinnati's schedule. And it's like these schedules one-off. They're made years in advance. So how can they know what to schedule at the right time? That's one thing that pisses me off. And they actually did schedule a top 10 or 11 team in Notre Dame right now. And they beat them fair and square. They almost beat Georgia last year. I know this is just about Cincinnati. We were talking about SMU potentially making the playoff, but still not a lot of love for Cincinnati. And again, that's a Navy. I'm not gonna get started. Keep going, Scott.
I mean, that's why we kind of saw something like that pop up with like Texas and Oklahoma wanting to join the ACC or the SEC. I feel like we're going to see other teams start to do that because hey, if you don't want to put us in the playoffs, we're going to be able to go undefeated and dominate everyone we play, and we're still not going to get a shot. All right, we're going to get out and get a shot. So that's why I think a lot more of that stuff is going to happen.
Yeah,
and I because if they're not even gonna get a chance, but it's gonna like a team like Cincinnati or someone that kind of carries their conference, it's gonna be devastating for them, and then the conferences are just gonna get stronger, and then it's not, and then you might have another dominating force of a weaker conference, and then they're gonna want to get a shot and try and go somewhere else. I feel like what Texas and Oklahoma did just opened up a can of worms that it's gonna be a big talk for the next 10 years.
No, I agree. And I want to highlight a comment I saw just a second ago. Kansas, they literally opened the gates and posted on social media, come watch the second half. And if you saw some of the pictures, the stadium actually got pretty decently full. So I know Kansas is one of your favorite teams, Cole, right?
Yeah. Mark Mangino is all-time coach of college football. Really a true historian, would love this man. People are going to remember this guy for years to come, even though he hasn't been with Kansas since probably 2011. But, I think that this football program, it's fascinating because the basketball team is, so dominant. They pack that place out. It's honestly the best home court advantage in college basketball. But then they can't fill the stadium for football. It's bizarre. It's insane. Anyway, I digress. Scott?
No, I agree. And I want to say, UCLA Dodger fan, every day you've commented this for about, 2 or 3 weeks. Eventually I'll get to it. I got to say that. Eventually I'll get to it. But going on to the next question, who is your current Heisman pick? We're going to start with Alex this time.
I would love to go with my favorite player and Kenny Pickett. Can't do that. I think it's got to be Matt Corral right now for me. That's my Heisman pick. You look at what he did last year with the 6-interception game against Arkansas, the 5-interception game against LSU, and now he's played seven games and he's thrown 1 interception. Right? He's obviously the leading passer for Ole Miss. He's the leading rusher for Ole Miss. He's a do-it-all player and fits Lane Kiffin's mold perfectly and has Ole Miss as a top 10 team. And if things can go their way, maybe even slip into the playoff, as we were talking about earlier. So I really don't see. I think he's probably the best quarterback in college football right now. So he's got to be my number one. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Ole Miss, I'm definitely not the biggest fan of Lane Kiffin. But I got to give credit where it's due. Matt Corral's playing lights out football right now.
I agree. What about you, Jonathan?
I want to go Jerome Ford. Like I said, my favorite player this season.
I agree with you, man. I really agree with you.
But I don't think he's going to get the credit. Kenneth Walker's another guy, but I don't think the running backs, unless we have what happened with the wide receivers, I don't think the running backs are going to get the credit they deserve for the Heisman race. And I think it's going to end up being either like a Matt Corral or Bryce Young in the end.
And I guess I'll go ahead and go with mine. As much as I just don't want to pick it, it's going to come down to Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. We all know that's going to happen. And I think just the way Ohio State's playing right now, you look, Ohio State still has to play Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State. Stroud has a chance to put up numbers against top 25 and top 10 teams and win the division. And he's going to probably play a good Iowa team in the Big Ten championship. Stroud, unfortunately, is probably going to win it. And he has just so many weapons. Henderson, Smith and Jigba, Olave, Wilson, and then you got a ton of other 5-stars on the bench. But if I had to put my money on it, I would put it on Stroud right now. But either that, it'll be Corral or Bryce Young. And finally, we got to get to you, Cole.
Well, I wanted to say Jerome Ford. I agree with that, John. Like, he's outstanding. Like, and he puts up, he'll break off for like a couple 60-yard rushes a game, like 2 probably. But he's a workhorse. He keeps getting in the end zone, and every single week he just keeps getting better. But I'd say Matt Corral, honestly. I don't really have like crazy out there pick. I was going to say Desmond Ridder, but I'm not going to lie to you. He hasn't been amazing as of recently, so I don't think he could win it necessarily. But I still like Corral's chances because I like Ole Miss's chances for the rest of the season. So
I agree with you on that, and we got to get to you, Jackson.
So, all right, I was going to say Matt Corral because it's the very same thing. I kind of wish sometimes it was kind of looked more at like an MVP rather than like a Heisman, because I feel like when you look at like a Bryce Young and like you talked about like all the weapons they had, like are they the most valuable? Like could you put someone else there and they could do something similar? Because someone that like I watched and I was like, okay, they just won that game because of him is Bijan Robinson. Like whenever I watched Texas, I was like, okay, they are winning this game because he gets hit 3 yards down the field and turns it into a 25-yard run. Like what he's doing is like, he's the most valuable player on their team. And you could argue he's like the most valuable player for like any team. Like he brings so much to them. And I know like they haven't had the season like they've wanted to, but like he does more for them than like the quarterback position.
I agree with that. And I want to address a couple of Mizzou comments here real quickly. I do think Tyler Beatty is better than Roundtree. Roundtree put up numbers for years, but he didn't have like that it factor, it seemed, all the time. Beatty has literally put this offense on his back, and without him, Mizzou would be in a dark spot, and they may be pretty much winless if they didn't have Beatty. And then another comment about should Drinkwitz change the quarterback. I think Macon needs to see a little bit more snaps, not necessarily start, but Macon needs to play, and Wilk should have been gone 3 weeks ago. And now we're going to get into our last question of the night. What's been your favorite game of the year so far? We're going to put the spotlight on Jackson first.
All right, let's do it. This one was easy for me because this is like I was on the edge of my seat this entire game. It was that A&M Alabama game because not only do I love seeing the teams that we're so used to seeing going undefeated every year and not really have all that like win, but what that comeback, the quarterback, like the backup quarterback is in, he gets hurt, he comes back in, makes the game-winning drive, gets the game-win field goal, rushes the field. Like that was so amazing. That was so much fun to watch. And now I see that Alabama's back in the playoff picture. It's not as impactful as I thought it was going to be. I was kind of hoping to see some like new faces, like maybe not like an Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama. But that game was definitely the most exciting I've seen so far.
All right, Jonathan, you're up.
I had to do a lot of thinking about this because there's been some amazing games this year, but the one I just kept coming back to was the Red River rivalry. Like I would have felt last year. And it's just one of those games that was so fun to watch. Texas goes up big. There's a switch at quarterback. Caleb Williams comes in, makes some amazing throws, possibly the throw of the year and the catch of the year. And just the ending of it, how the fumble on the kickoff, they score, and then Texas comes right back down and scores again. And then they score. Oklahoma scores on a running play to end the game on a walk-off fashion. They storm the field.
There was some dude who went to both the A&M and the Red River rivalry game. I don't know if you guys saw that.
That's great.
Yeah, I did. That was pretty cool.
That's a
all right, cool.
That's not close.
Mr. Adams, you're up.
My favorite game that I have seen during the 2022 season is when Cincinnati beat Wake Forest in the national championship game in Indianapolis. I'm kidding. No, my favorite game that I saw this year was actually one I went to. I went to the Ohio State-Oregon game. I would say that's probably been the most memorable besides the ones that have been mentioned. It was pretty cool because I was actually sitting in the Oregon section, and I mean, I like Ohio State, but it was definitely pretty wild to see those people that traveled out for that game. So that was a lot of fun. It was a close game. Came all the way down to the wire, so I'd go with that one.
All right, definitely respect that. Alex, you're up.
I was also going to say Texas A&M Alabama because the whole time I kept waiting for Alabama to wake up and come back. A&M jumped out the early lead, and you thought that's not a big deal. Alabama will end up beating them by 14, 20, whatever. But I'll switch it up and go different. How about Notre Dame and Florida State all the way back to week 1? That game was insane. Notre Dame pulled away. I was like, they've got it in the bag. Thought they were going to cover, right? And then McKenzie Milton, I think, is what made that game. McKenzie Milton coming in late, obviously the first significant playing time since his injury, gets Florida State back, sends them to overtime. Notre Dame won that game in overtime, but everybody thought, okay, the Seminoles might not be, too bad. They might be on their way back under Mike Norvell. Then 2 weeks later, they lose to Jacksonville State. So, but a great game. It was a great way to kick off the year. Only game on that opening Sunday. So I'll throw that one up there as my favorite.
That's
so
a great pick. That's
a
great
good pick. I mean, there have been so many games. People like us who cover college football for a living or for a hobby, pretty much every game is relevant to us. So it's pretty much impossible to pick one. But I'm going to do something different than all you guys. I'm going NC State Clemson because I think that was sort of the death of Clemson a little bit. And the story and just the nonsense that went on. That NC State kicker missed 3 field goals in the second half. Misses the one to go to overtime to win it in regulation. I mean, and then in overtime, they score those 2 touchdowns, one on 4th and goal. And then just DJ throws it away, and Justin Ross wasn't even looking at the ball. And it just epitomized the power, like the transition of power in the ACC right there. I love that game. And then NC State stormed the field, obviously.
The other game to mention, too, is Ole Miss Arkansas. Was another wild one.
Iowa Penn State was great. Ole Miss Tennessee was great.
Wait, Scott, I have a question for you. So you said it was kind of like the sign of the times that like Clemson wasn't going to be like the team that you thought. Like, what do you think like their biggest like issue has been this year as to like why they haven't been able to like put it together like in years past? Because it seems like they have like, I mean, they have like Dabo, like they have like all like these 5-star, like they always have like the most insane recruiting classes. Like, what specifically for you is like the reason that they're struggling so bad?
Well, like I've thought about it a lot. Like, I don't think DJ is bad. I think the NIL stuff got to his head, and I think the expectations were too high. But honestly, I think losing Travis Etienne was the biggest thing. Like, that guy did pretty much everything. He could run the ball anywhere. He could catch the ball. Like, he could block. Like, he was the guy to always make a play. But if you look at Clemson, they don't really have a running back like that. Like, the wide receiver, like Justin Ross is pretty good. Like, they're all like average, but they were missing those 2 stars. And DJ hasn't stepped up to that, and they haven't had that running back. But Etienne and Trevor just were underrated those last few years. And then just, I don't know. I mean, Nick Saban's the best coach in the game. Georgia has the #1 recruiting class every year. Like, Clemson's pretty much there, but if you don't hit on all your players, like, you're going to fall off a little bit. I didn't expect it to be this much, but Clemson will probably bounce back and be back to the playoff next year, as we all know.
Yeah, I mean, they're recruiting too well. No, I was going to say the recruiting. I mean, this is one of those down years everybody has. I mean, this is like, when Alabama lost 2 games a few years ago, right? I mean, everybody freaked out, thought Alabama's dynasty was over. We knew it wasn't. They got back to normal. But Clemson's recruiting extremely well. As long as Venables stays, I mean, the defense for Clemson is actually still one of the best in the country statistically. It's just the offense isn't putting up the numbers. And that's the major reason they're struggling so much. So I agree. This is just one of those years where they lost a lot of talent, ETN, Lawrence, guys like that, but they're gonna bounce back. The dynasty, I don't think, completely over yet.
And the way they lost to Georgia was probably a very deflating loss right there. I mean, you are a pick six away from having a tie game in a crazy situation in the first week of the season.
Yeah, and we got to address Illinois Penn State. I mean, what a letdown for the Nittany Lions, man.
Talk about a week for Brett Bielema. Holy smokes.
Didn't Sikowski break his hand in overtime too or something? No, he did. Yeah, he's out for the year. Oh, but this is a good team to bring up. UCLA was one of those teams that won 3 or 4 games last year, yet had all this hype, and I bought into it. And I would say for the most part they have lived up to it. But what do you guys think about the Pac-12 as a whole? I'm going to start with you, Cole.
The Pac-12, it's the same as it always has been. It's up and down and unpredictable. But, I think that Chip Kelly's doing a pretty decent job. I mean, they started off the year pretty well, and everybody was excited and hyped up. So I think that, I guess that's as good as you could ask for this season specifically. And we'll see about next season with what DTR can do. I mean, he's small, and obviously when you're in the Pac-12, things are so up and down to begin with. I mean, I wouldn't say I would be disappointed. I wouldn't know what UCLA fans would say, but they don't really have a huge football fan base to begin with. So I guess they're just kind of happy. I don't really know what they'd be thinking.
Hey, there's always basketball season.
Yeah, there is always basketball. And their basketball team should be great.
Yeah, they're going to be good.
The problem is that, I'm watching College Game Day, and that place doesn't really fill out there. And it's a Saturday too. I don't get it, but they did have to get up really early. That's one thing, because the East Coast, they had to get up super early in the morning to go to that. But that was one of the most empty College Game Days I've ever seen. So
yeah, that was kind of sad. But I agree with out to boot. I think Billy Napier needs to be the new head coach at LSU. Cole, you know how much I've raved about him, how he's the next big thing in coaching. But I would be ecstatic if LSU hired him. But it's not the sexiest hire, and unfortunately, they probably run him out of town after about 2 years.
Yeah, it's definitely not the flashy hire, but he's been really good there. I don't know their record this year. I don't know if they've even done well after that Texas game. I haven't.
I believe they're 6-1.
They're on top of their division right now.
All right, well there you go.
Yeah,
doing great.
Problem with Louisiana, they haven't lost since the Texas game, but they continue to play to the level of their competition. Right, Louisiana's light years better than everybody else in the Sun Belt West. Right, but only beat Arkansas State by 1 last week. They were 18-point favorites, only managed to win by 1. Needed a 99-yard touchdown really to really solidify that win. Barely beating Georgia Southern, barely beating Georgia State. The talent's there. They should be beating these teams by a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see. They're going to win the West. They're going to the Sun Belt Championship. But do they beat Coastal or App State? Probably App State now since they've on that tiebreaker. But are they going to be able to take them down in the regular season, which they did, obviously, on the road a couple weeks ago, 41-13. But can they do it again? That's the million-dollar question.
All right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I'm trying to think of the next question. Jonathan, he's a big Wisconsin fan. I know the Badgers haven't been the same team they've always been. What, in your opinion, has gone wrong for the Badgers this year?
This could take a while.
I'm going to try to keep it quick. I think we need to actually hire a true offensive coordinator. The guy calling plays. I think Chris took back play calling duties this year. And it's just one of those simple things where the running back room's been changing up. Now you got Allen and Malusi. Malusi and Berger were two alike of backs to be those combo running backs. I like what I've seen of Allen so far. And I always came back to play calling. I would text you throughout the games. And, I heard some rumors that some wide receivers had checked out going back to last year. So I wondered after the Penn State game whether some people checked out again this year, but I can't clarify anything of that. But I don't know. The crazy thing is they still control their own destiny in the Big Ten West, even after everything else.
And the Big
Ten is so weird. That, it reminds me so much of the Pac-12 as well, because they have you kind of have to have one loss or be undefeated, but they just end up beating each other. Like Purdue, Wisconsin, Indiana, they'll spoil someone's season, and a Stanford, Arizona State, Washington State, they'll spoil someone's season. I feel like they're really good, but in those conferences specifically, there's so many people that just ruin seasons. That's a nobody. And if you have that loss on your record, you're just not going to make it if you're not
And then Ohio State ends up getting through to the Big Ten championship in the playoff, as always. Sorry, Ohio State fans. So, yeah, here's the $1 million question. This one's going to go to Cole Adams because I know you're a huge Demon Deacons fan. How's Wake Forest going to finish?
Probably not undefeated. I mean, let's be real here. They let Army score 56 points on them. They also should have. I mean, that game against Syracuse, they got lucky. And then before that, they only beat Louisville by 3. So, honestly, they should be blessed with what they have so far. They'll probably beat Duke, but I think they'll lose to North Carolina and probably – honestly, I could see them losing out. I'm not even lying. I really could. I mean, after that, because we play North Carolina State, they're not bad. Clemson's not horrible. I mean, well, they are. Clemson's terrible. But they're good enough to beat Wake Forest, and then Boston College is always going to be a tough out. So, I mean, hey, screenshot the 7-0, put the 13 on, raise the banner, but I don't know if they're going to finish out the season as – I mean, I like their quarterback. I mean, he's got a really good story, but other than – I mean, I'm just trying to be real with you, so – that's my thoughts. I don't know if anybody else even agrees. Alex, I don't even know if you would agree, but yeah, that's where I stand with that.
Man, I mean, they're I love Sam Hartman, right? Offense is great, but you're right. UNC, Sam Howell, at this point, he's been greater than Sam Hartman. That game is at North Carolina. NC State, I can't remember who hosts that game. It's Wake Forest or NC State, but that game's going to determine who wins the Atlantic, right? And I think NC State can probably win that game. Don't think they lose out. I think the schedule is a little too favorable. I mean, obviously they're going to beat Duke. I feel pretty confident about that. But anybody that's going to say, "Oh, there's playoff sleeper, they're 13th, so they go unbeaten, beat Pittsburgh," maybe it's just not going to happen. Love Dave Clawson, but maybe 8-4, 9-3 at best.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if any of you guys didn't know, Sam Hartman was Will Greer's the quarterback after Will Greer in high school. I don't know if you need to know that, but that's a fun fact. Speaking of will UConn win again? What'd you say, Jonathan?
The Netflix documentary QB1 Beyond the Lights. I think he was in season 2. He was in one of the seasons.
Oh, well, all right. Cole, this comment of will UConn win again reminded me of the best game of the year that we didn't talk about, UConn-UMass.
Oh, my God. Scott,
don't forget about Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah.
UConn Vanderbilt.
Classic.
Man,
$1 ticket.
Really, their schedule is a work of art. UConn's schedule. Like, you couldn't have asked for some better matchups. Anyway, that was a great game. Scott and I were trying to find the stream for that one, and there really wasn't a stream, so we had to, work some magic, and we finally found it, but they rushed the field. The UMass fans rushed the field after that game. Now, it makes sense because that was their first win, but just imagine telling yourself you're going to rush the field after beating UConn. But, yeah, it's a sad story. I actually drove by the UConn Stadium on my way up to Boston back in October, so that was kind of cool. Didn't really get to check the place out, but I did drive right by it. So go UConn.
Yeah, no, UConn is just not there. But that UMass game, I agree. I think game day should have been there. Everyone was looking forward to that game. Absolutely.
It was a real classic. I think that, historians are going to be talking about that game for years to come.
I agree with that. And as some of you guys probably don't know, but Alex goes to Arkansas State, but he's a Razorbacks fan. And the Razorbacks have definitely been one of the surprises. They've fallen off as they've lost, I think, 3 of their last 4. But how did this all happen? And were you shocked by all this for Arkansas, Alex?
I think I was shocked more with the start, right? I figured that the Razorbacks would beat Texas. I felt very confident about that in the preseason. I didn't see the A&M win coming in the preseason. After the start, I did. The thing is, what Arkansas needed was a guy that was going to come in there and, build his system and build his culture, something they really haven't had since the Petrino days, right? Bielema came in from Wisconsin, never really was the right fit to come in from the north down to the south like that. His style of play was never going to work in the SEC. Chad Morris is as incompetent of a coach as you can get. That was never going to pan out. So you bring in a guy like Sam Pittman who genuinely wants to be at Arkansas, wanted to be there, loves the Razorbacks, has always loved the Razorbacks. If you know just football history, the same was said for Houston Nutt, and Houston Nutt did extremely well with the Hogs from the late 90s to about 2007 was his last year there. So and he did well, a couple of SEC West titles, multiple Cotton Bowl berths, and that's what Pittman does. He's come in, he's instilled the culture, he's instilled just the pride back in the state and in the program, and the players have bought into that. They needed someone to come in there and just really right the ship and actually put some structure in there because that wasn't there for probably the last 5 or 6 years. As much as I was happy for Bielema with Illinois, he was god awful at Arkansas. So that's how they did it. That's how they've done it. Pittman to me is my coach of the year in the SEC. A lot of people want to say it's going to be Mark Stoops with Kentucky. You can say Saban or Smart because of how well they're doing, but even Lane Kiffin. But to me, it's got to be Pittman. You're taking a team that won, 4 games in 2 years with Chad Morris, and Pittman has won 8 in less than 2 years already. So he's doubled that. And almost a lot of those coming in the SEC. I mean, it's pretty unreal, the turnaround that we've had.
No, I agree. And Josh Heupel's another name that keeps getting thrown out there. Is they've actually Tennessee's looked pretty decent, but they couldn't get it done against Ole Miss. Maybe if they had a couple extra mustard bottles, it would have worked for them. But yeah, Arkansas has been a lot of fun to watch. They're obviously rivals with Mizzou, and you guys are gonna absolutely kill us. Mizzou is the worst defense in college football. It's been an embarrassing year. But I wanted to highlight this guy. Hold on. Auburn will take down Bama and Jordan Hare. I want to ask Jackson, what's your opinion on this?
Oh man, so this is kind of where my my lack of college has gone in. I don't know if you guys know, I do strictly pretty much NFL, but I haven't really watched Auburn that much this year. So I'm probably not the best one to ask this on this. I mean, Bama, they've looked really, really impressive. They looked like Bama in the past, when I've seen them in a lot of games, but they also have this they look very beatable. I mean, I know they did lose. That's pretty obvious, but there's something about the team that doesn't feel like they can just go out and dominate anyone that they put on the field. It's they have to work for it, and they're really using their system and their schemes to kind of get a lot of these big play, kind of lightning in a bottle, 2 to 3 score play drives that are kind of schemed up. They're not being able to just overpower people, just kind of dink and dunk their way up the field. You're going to have to when you play a really good defense like that.
Yeah, and Bo Nix has beat him before, so.
And it's home, right? It's at Jordan Hare this year.
Yeah.
Bo Nix statistics between home and away is one of the wildest things you'll ever look at.
And you never know with rivalry week either. Literally anything can happen rivalry week.
Yeah, there's still a lot to be determined in pretty much, at least in the SEC West and the Big Ten East, which are the 2 best divisions this year in my eyes. And the ACC is all over the place. The only division I really think is locked up is, I think, Georgia winning the East and the SEC, or maybe Oregon winning the North. But, hey, Oregon State's been good, and who knows what's going to happen there. What do you think about the Beavers, Cole?
The Beavers had a magical run in March Madness. Really, honestly, blew me away more than anything that happened in the tournament. So it seems like the tide, not the tide, but the logs are falling down in Corvallis, and the Beavers are just chewing them up. They look, honestly, they're a tough out. I mean, they lost when you were came over my house. God, I don't remember who they were playing exactly.
Washington State, I believe.
It was Washington State. Okay. See, I'm not an Oregon State expert. I couldn't really tell you much, but good for them. Glad to see them doing well.
Can I say something about Oregon State? Now I got to do a video on this. I, along with a lot of the national magazines, previewed Oregon State get 3 or 4 wins this year, and the preview's kind of blowing up at the wrong time of the Oregon State fan base is really holding me accountable for that one, and I will admit I was wrong about the Beavers this year.
It's all good.
I know, I love the Beavers. My Purdue Boilermakers beat them in week 1, but once they made the quarterback switch, they're on a roll. And I love your comment about them chewing the logs, Cole.
Exactly. That's what the Beavers do. Don't mess with them. Respect the dam, all right?
Yeah, build the dam. That's their motto. Just there's Liddyville and.
Well, my high school mascot actually was a beaver. I'm not even
lying.
Oh, nice. All right. We've got 2 Beavers in here. Let's just transfer to Oregon State. All right. Let's
I will say, Shane Beamer was my least favorite coaching hire in all of all the Power 5. And Jed Fish was terrible too. But Shane Beamer, in my eyes, was just the worst Power 5 hire. I made that known in my video, and I got a lot of crap for that. But I really don't think he's going to do anything at South Carolina. He may be able to recruit or has the personality, but I mean, South Carolina's looked pretty bad this year. I just don't really like Beamer that much. But
I think that's going to be a Mel Tucker situation again. I think he'll get it going. I really do. They lost
That's
a lot.
Nolan.
I do too.
They're in the SEC, and I think that he has everything he needs. His dad is obviously a legend, and I think that he's not going to screw it up. I think just give him some time.
All right. But this guy, Grayson, wants to know who our favorite team is. So I guess I'll start, and then we'll go from top to bottom. I spent some time at Purdue, so that's one of my schools, but my main school is Mizzou. Most of you guys probably know that, so I'm a diehard Missouri fan. But those are my 2 schools. I also like Indiana as well because I spent some time there. Cole.
Okay. This is a long story, but I'm gonna make it very quick. I live in Ohio. Okay. I didn't grow up an Ohio State fan. So for me, I had to find love for a team that makes no sense, but I'm going to make it quick, and you're probably not even going to be expecting this, but 1 second. My favorite team growing up were these guys. TCU Horned Frogs. This was my team growing up. I loved watching Andy Dalton play, Casey Paul Hall after him, and then Trevon Boykin. That was my team. But at the moment, the Frogs are struggling, and I kind of have transitioned in. I need to find a team in Ohio, so I kind of been rolling with the Bearcats as of recently, and I kind of transitioned back into a little bit of an Ohio State fan, especially the way college football is. Those teams are both an hour away from me, so like I feel like, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm a diehard fan by any means, but I do cheer for them. There you go.
Yeah, you obviously love the Cats and the Bucks. Jackson, you got a couple options here. Who's your favorite school?
All right. Well, I was really hoping, because I knew you're from Ohio, so I was really hoping you were going to say Ohio State, because we're taking y'all down this year. I'm from Michigan, so big U of M fan. Have to ride with them. If you guys in the chat are like literally within an 8-hour drive of Ann Arbor, Michigan, you need to go to a game. The Big House is an environment like no other. It is insane. It goes crazy. So yeah, being a Michigan fan, obviously I go to San Diego State, so I'm at Aztec, everything else. But if they were to be playing Michigan, it's kind of hard to go against my home team. All
right, Alex.
Yeah, I go to Arkansas State, but I'm a huge Razorback fan, which I get a lot of hate for that up here. But it's been rough, like Cole was saying with TCU. It's been a rough go around TCU's been way better than we have for a while. But it's one of those things where I tell myself, I just pray to God that I'll eventually see us win a championship in some sport other than track and field. I really hope that we'll find a way to win in football, basketball, baseball, whatever.
Nice.
Their
4x4 is nice.
Like 40 national championships in track and field, but Razorbacks for sure, man. They we're getting there. Pittman's turned us around. Not saying we're going to be contenders, but we're thrilled with 8-4. After what we've been dealing with, we're thrilled with mediocrity and just getting to a bowl game. So we'll take that.
Amen, Jonathan.
It's kind of obvious. W's in the background. Proud alum, University of Wisconsin.
I thought Badger Washington. Sorry.
Grandparents went to Wisconsin. Been a Badger fan since I was 5 years old, and it's been an up and down fandom with the Badgers. I think it was 2014 and 2015. Broke my heart. And anytime we get a little media hype in college football, it ends up being a 8-4 season most of the time, or a loss to Northwestern.
John, which one broke your heart? The basketball team in 2014 and 15, or the football team, or both?
Oh,
both.
There we go.
Brutal.
I care way too much about the Badgers, too much, and it's gotten me to the point where I want to. If I go back to school, it's going to be studying the fandom of sports and why we care so much across the world. It's a little sneak peek.
Man, we all kind of go through it. None of us have gotten it in a minute. None of us is like, oh yeah, I'm an Alabama fan. Like, just pretty much expect to win one every year. That'd be so nice.
Yeah, no, I know. I have another YouTuber. I don't know if you guys have heard of Matt Be Great, but he does basketball and football content. He's a Bama fan. He said he sometimes gets tired of it because all the games are boring because they win from the beginning. So he said the Texas A&M game was the most fun he had in a couple years. So that's another perspective on it.
But excited about losing.
I'll give him a pass, though. He might be genuinely serious. He might not be like, oh, yeah.
No, he was serious.
I believe it, yeah. I mean, honestly, I really do believe it. It's definitely been pretty absurd. I don't know how old the audience is watching, but, like, it used to not be like this 10 years ago. Things were up and down and crazy and all sorts of fun. And as of recently, it's really just been boring when it comes to, like, championships.
No, I know. And to answer this question, Matt Wells was never to get the job done at Texas Tech. He was just kind of bland and wasn't recruiting very well. And those lopsided losses to Texas and whoever the heck they lost to just put the nail in the coffin. And they also want to grab either Sonny Dykes or Jeff Traylor. That's all I've been reading. They're two coaches who are undefeated. So they're going to grab one of those guys. And hopefully they
leave. Like, would you leave SMU for Texas Tech?
Well, if SMU doesn't get included in conference expansion.
I've heard rumors that they're going to be part of Chapter 2 of Big 12 realignment. I've heard the Big 12 wants to go 16 teams.
Well, if they do, then there's no reason to leave. But jumping from UTSA to Texas Tech is definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, that one makes sense.
All right, Cole, what's your thought on the Sun Belt?
Blow it up.
Well, so I think the Sun Belt's rumored to get Marshall, and I'm blanking on the other Old Dominion and one other team I'm blanking on. I can't remember the third team.
They are going to add James Madison from the FCS. I do know that.
So it's Conference USA that might be the conference that ends up dissipating and disappearing, but who knows? This conference realignment stuff, I was calling for the Big 12 to probably not going to last months ago. So, I mean, things are changing month in and month out.
Yep, it is. Alex, did you see Brennan Armstrong coming out of nowhere and leading the country in passing yards this year?
Never saw him leading the country, man, but Brennan Armstrong's got a cannon. Brennan Armstrong, that Virginia passing offense is ridiculous. Over 400 yards per game just through the air. So, answer this question. Chances on top 25, they'll be in it next week because they're going to beat BYU on Saturday. So, they're going to be just fine. BYU, Virginia is they're 6-2. They're going to be 7-2 after Saturday with the win over BYU, and they could give Pittsburgh a little run for their money in the Coastal. Let's not forget about that game coming up here pretty soon.
That's going to be fun. To answer this question, ever since the news broke 3 hours ago, I've been thinking about this nonstop. I really have no idea, but for some reason, I think he's going to go to Georgia Tech or something to be the next quarterback after Sims and go back home.
Is he from Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, Jonathan O'Brien, you're up.
I think Sam Howell has – it's so hard. I really haven't gotten – I was going to watch a ton of North Carolina games this year, but after they kind of fell off a cliff towards the beginning of the year, they haven't been on the radar as much. Sam Howell, back in April, I had him as my number one quarterback, as did a lot of people. So I found the regression along with Spencer Rattler to be extremely shocking.
I agree. And I guess with this question, I want to go through and just see who's your guys' favorite receiver. I'll start. I love Jamison Williams. I follow Mizzou recruiting heavily, so Mizzou really tried to get him out of St. Louis. But he went to Ohio State, and everyone was talking about how great that trio of Ohio State receivers is, but they let Jamison Williams sit on the bench, and he is proving his worth at Bama, and I hope he goes to the Colts as a first-round pick. Cole, you're up.
Well, I was going to go to another Ohio State receiver, but not Olave and not Wilson. I'm going to say Jackson Smith-Njigba. That man has been awesome in the slot. He's fun to watch. He's always getting open, and his name is awesome to say. So, boom, there you go.
Jackson.
Njigba.
Just
say John Mechie.
Come back to me on that one. I have to think about it.
Alex.
I'll show a little bias. I'll go Traylon Burks, man. This guy, he's a first-round draft pick at Arkansas. Best player on the Hawks team. They don't use him nearly enough. I said Chad Morris was an incompetent coach. I might go as far as say Kendall Briles is a pretty incompetent offensive coordinator because they don't know how to run the plays up in Fayetteville. They don't know how to call the plays the right way. But Traylon Burks, man, the hand size is ridiculous. His speed's ridiculous. I think he's a top 20 pick come April for sure.
Traylon's just a superhuman. I love that picture of him in jeans or something with the glasses. Have you seen that?
Yes, yeah.
I've not seen that. I need to check that out.
I mean, I wish I could put it on the.
I'll look it up.
Can you put stuff on the stream? Can you add a picture and stuff to it?
I think if you press share, but I don't know. I haven't done that. You might have to pay for that.
Was this him in high school?
I don't know. All I know is the picture keeps surfacing around. It's
right.
like that Tevin Jenkins picture of him with the glasses and the.
Okay. Yeah,
I
see what you mean now. Okay, we'll look it up after the stream.
And all right, Jonathan, who's your top receiver? It better not be a Wisconsin one because they don't have anyone good.
I was going to make the joke at first. I mean, he's not a wide receiver. He's a tight end, but Jake Ferguson's getting some draft nods, so don't sleep on Ferg. But I've had a blast watching Mims out of Oklahoma the past few years.
Why is that?
Just the catch in the Red River rivalry was one of those crazy things to see. And I mean, it seems like he's kind of exploded since Caleb Williams has come in to take over. That whole offense seems reignited at Oklahoma.
I
would
agree.
you be your NFL comparison for him?
I don't have one right now. I haven't really compared a lot of guys yet. I'll do a lot of more draft research in the next few months.
All right, Jackson, you're taking this one.
All right, I got Jalen Nail. Oh. Do you think Michigan is legit this year? Will they at least keep it close against Ohio? I wish we were playing Ohio. Unfortunately, we have to play Ohio State. But
Whoa.
however, okay. So this kind of goes into Cade McNamara versus JJ McCarthy, because I think Cade McNamara, when he's on the field, he's going to be that game manager. He's going to they're going to run the ball. I mean, Michigan and Michigan State, just how they win the games running the ball, it's so I don't know, not what you were used to seeing in college football. They're running it like crazy. Cade McNamara, he's not really going to turn the ball over. He's going to keep it safe, but he's like a floor raiser. JJ McCarthy is going to raise their ceiling so they can beat a team like Ohio State, because he's going to be dynamic with his legs. I don't know if you guys saw that throw against Western Michigan where he's rolling out to the left, stops, throws it completely the other side of the field, 40 yards, perfectly in stride. You need someone as dynamic as that if you want to beat a team like Ohio State, because they're going to put their best players out there. I think Michigan's kind of playing it safe right now. I was yelling at them to get rid of Shea Patterson forever ago, just for someone that would give us a chance. And I think we're kind of seeing the same thing. It's we have the team. Harbaugh's finally doing his thing. But yeah, I think we need to get JJ McCarthy if we want to beat some of those teams that if we're going to see in the playoffs if we make it.
I agree. I mean, poor Alan Bowman. He never got his time to shine. But now we're going to go over to Alex. You're an SEC fan. Who has the best chance of beating Georgia?
I mean, obvious answer is Alabama, right? The only team that can beat Georgia, I think, is Alabama, because the only coach that can outsmart Kirby Smart is Nick Saban.
His father.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only thing, unfortunately, is they're going to meet in the SEC championship unless Bama were to lose again. Auburn, obviously, in the Iron Bowl could be a close game than expected, but Georgia's not losing in the regular season. I would be shocked if the only team that could beat them is Florida this weekend, and that's just not going to happen. So.
Who's playing quarterback at Florida?
AR-15.
Should be AR-15, but it's not. Dan Mullen keeps digging himself a grave by not sticking with one quarterback and trying to split time between AR-15 and Emory Jones. It's ridiculous. But yeah.
I know. And the whole Kyle Trask, Felipe Franks ordeal too. Cole, it's on the screen for you.
Yeah, Lucas, that's a great question. Honestly, I made a video called "Why I Think Cincinnati's the Best Team in College Football." Maybe we can look it out there, and you know what? I don't really care. I do what I want around these parts. Now, that game against Navy, I'm going to say something. That one is way more I'll give them a bigger pass than I would give Oklahoma, and I'm saying this because, first off, going to the Naval Academy, that's a tough place to play. They always pack the place, no matter how good Navy is. They're always going to be packed. They've got a bunch of, Naval Academy members just making the place as loud as possible. It's a noon game. It's a tough environment. They play a certain style of football that's hard to play against. And at one point, I think it was 27-10. The game, Cincinnati got it going in the third quarter, and they kind of started to go away with it. Then they kind of allowed them to come back into it. I'm going to give them a bigger pass than I would give Oklahoma against Kansas. Oklahoma did not show up at all for that game. The place was completely empty to start out the game. It was embarrassment. That was an embarrassing close game. Yet people would still have Oklahoma ranked ahead of Cincinnati. It's bizarre to me, but whatever. I still think they're really good. I think that they've proven it the past 2 years. It's incredibly difficult to go undefeated to begin with. I mean, there's plenty of years where Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson have a loss. So it's not like you have to be perfect. It's frustrating as heck watching, these experts talk about how Cincinnati just doesn't have a good enough schedule. Anyway, yeah, I still think they're a top 4 team. Are they the number 1 team? I wouldn't say so, because that's pretty outlandish to say anyway. I mean, Georgia's been pretty dominant. So overall, still very impressed, and I think that they'll be fine the rest of the way. And SMU, if they keep going undefeated, I think that will be another great win for them if they can get that one. So, yeah.
Amen. All right, Jonathan, we're going to give you a really good question. What's your UCLA at USC prediction?
I don't have a score prediction, and the crazy thing to look at is USC was this team that everybody was saying was going to win the South in the Pac-12. It's going to be this great team. Keaton Slovis was being talked about. I think it was Mel Kiper's first quarterback off the draft board at the beginning of the season. And now, they all did give Notre Dame a game this past weekend. Notre Dame did crush Wisconsin. They lost to Cincinnati. I don't have a full idea of how good Notre Dame actually is this year. I mean, they played that ACC schedule, so you never really know. But UCLA was so close to making, I think it was tying the game against Oregon before your backup quarterback comes in. Garbers comes in, throws the pick on the second throw after the tight end drops a wide open pass. I think UCLA pulls out the win in that game.
UCLA has been so much fun, and hopefully Garbers takes the reins and is good next year, and Chip doesn't lose his job. But I'll quickly answer this. I think the obvious answer is Clark Lee. The incredible job he's done at Vanderbilt this year. They've looked very competitive in pretty much every game. But in reality, I think it has to go to Pittman second, Heupel's third in my eyes. I think it has to be Mark Stoops. I mean, Kentucky was 6-0. They didn't play Georgia. Like, Georgia obviously killed them, but they didn't look as bad as you'd think. And just from where Kentucky football was to where they are now, I think Mark Stoops deserves the trophy for that. Cole, you look a little bit out of it, so we're going to get you back.
Well, I would like to talk about who I think should win Coach of the Year in the SEC.
All right.
Well, I think it's the head coach at Florida. I think that his decisions on the quarterback position have been outstanding. The games look great, and they have good things coming for him. All right, keep going.
All right, here's one for you, Cole.
Luke Fickell ain't leaving Cincinnati until Ohio State job is available, right? You know, that's an interesting one. I don't know if everybody knew this, but he was the former head coach at Ohio State for one season after Jim Tressel back in 2012 or 2011. And it wasn't a great season for them. It was pretty rough. They lost their bowl game to Florida. It was the Gator Bowl. I think that obviously he's a Ohio State guy. He went there, played there. I think that's the job he would want. I think he'd take a job in the Midwest, but Cincinnati going to the Big 12. I mean, he loves it there. I don't know why he would leave, and they've got a good quarterback coming in. So, who knows?
No, I'm with you on that. And Jonathan, James Franklin. I know you love the guy from your recruiting trip back in high school. You can tell everyone about that real quick, but what do you think of this?
I don't love James Franklin just from my experience. Granted, I was a specialist. I was a long snapper, not top recruit. But I think Franklin's going to be leaving Penn State after the season. I think most likely for the USC job. I think Mel Tucker, I would love to see Mel Tucker at LSU. So, and I don't see Franklin leaving unless it's for one of those two jobs.
No, I agree. Tucker to LSU seems like it would be a great fit, but in a perfect world, I'd love him to stay at Michigan State. And since you're such a big Ohio State fan, Jackson, what do you think of this comment?
Ohio State be ranked in the top 3. I don't think so right now, because I think the Big Ten is going to be super interesting. I actually never got to answer the question who I think the biggest sleeper is. And it kind of like plays. It was a while ago, but it kind of plays into this too, because I think between Michigan State, and Ohio State, like they're going to be playing a lot of teams. They play teams like Purdue, they play like Indiana, they're all playing each other. And so I think that's going to be like a big tell, because Ohio State, they're blowing teams out, but who have they really played? The best team they played was Oregon, and they lost. Like, I don't know how they can be ahead of some of these undefeated teams that have some more impressive wins on their resume. So even though if you want to look at it like, yeah, they're the better team, like you can't always do that, because then you could just be like, oh, this is the most talented team, put them in there. You actually have to look at like who they lost to, and these teams are winning, So I don't think Ohio State should be number 3 at all.
I'm with you on that. Definitely. I mean, who have they beat? But at the same time, you can argue that for a lot of schools. All right,
well,
Alex.
If they do go on to beat Michigan and Michigan State coming up, that's going to be really impressive. But I think Michigan State's my sleeper right now, not because like, I mean, a sleeper, they're like undefeated, like whatever, but I still think they could get in with one loss, depending on how it goes. Like, let's say they beat Ohio State and they lose to a Penn State, which could be like a trap game. I mean, something like that. If they can beat Michigan and Ohio State, I think they have a really, really good case for being the one-loss team in there. Sitting at number 8 and getting a loss, I would consider that a sleeper, because that usually just doesn't happen unless you're like number 1 and you slip to like 4.
Yeah, no, the Big Ten East is insane. Unfortunately, just the Penn State offense has just been terrible. But Alex, I got a great question for you. Who are the top 5 left tackle prospects for this year's draft?
Oh man, we can go ahead and just skip this question. I mean, I can't say I'm an offensive line expert myself, so beats me right now. I'll have to do a little more research on that.
Yeah, Jared, I got something for you. It's called Google, and you'll find anything you want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think we'll just look that up later. So.
Yeah,
Neil out of Alabama is a guy to keep an
Very
eye on.
obscure.
you can know anything about sports, but like left tackle prospects in October that's an ask for us. So
you don't want to know the guys' names.
I don't think I know any of the left tackle. I don't know if I know many linemen.
Yeah,
that's an off-season thing. That's
yeah,
an
we study that
pre-draft thing.
February or March. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we'll all study it. Don't get us wrong, but in October, we're sorry, we don't have any answers.
All right. Since Cole is a big mullet fan for the Chanticleers, why do you think everyone hates Coastal Carolina, man?
Well, you know what? I didn't like how things went on the field at the end of the App State game, and got some punches thrown and some attacking some fans. A little bit pushing around, but maybe that's why maybe they're seeing something that I was never seeing. But I like Grayson McCall. I still like this team. I'm going to keep watching them despite that loss. I think they can finish out their season strong. Also, I like watching them. I like their teal field, and go Shawns. Woo.
The poor App State always finds a way to win those games.
Scott, I'll tell you this right now. That's the game I wish I went to this year. I think
I was trying to tell Scott, let's go to that game, but we couldn't figure it out.
It's a tough place to get to. But like, you'll see pictures of the fall time at that at their campus. It's honestly, it looks like Hogwarts. I mean, it's beautiful, and I think that like the way that game went, that'd been a perfect game to be at. Now, honestly, that might be up in the contenders for game of the year. So
no, that was an incredible game. And out of all five of us, I would say Alex knows the most about the numbers and the statistics and both sides of the ball. I like to focus on the fun players, but Alex, what's gone wrong for Bama in terms of the defense this year?
This has been a weird year, obviously, for Bama, right? Because every year they lose coordinators and they lose so much NFL talent. We say, don't worry about it, because it happens every year. And they replace it, and they're still national title contenders. Not a big deal. The biggest problem for Alabama really has been, right now, I think it's just been lack of discipline. I think finally the youth has caught up to them. They're recruiting these 4-star, 5-star players every year, and we just expect them to go in there and fill these gaps left by all these NFL talented players. And we haven't seen it. They've been very undisciplined, especially undisciplined in the secondary. We haven't seen, teams been able to throw on Alabama, like this in years, right? For example of that, look at Tennessee just last week. I mean, that game was very, very close. Touchdown game in the fourth quarter before Alabama finally pulled away. And Tennessee was lighting them up through the air with Hendon Hooker. And honestly, the problem with Alabama as a whole, not just defensively, it is just lack of discipline. A lot of penalties, lots of turnovers. This is just a team that's very youthful, not a whole lot of experience across the board, not a lot of veteran players, and you're starting to see that wear off. Kind of similar to Clemson. Not that they've fallen off like Clemson had, but eventually that youth and inexperience catches up to you, and I think that's what happened with Bama this year. That's why I don't see them, if they get to the playoffs, they're not going to win the Natty.
And I think everyone in America is happy about this, except Bama fans.
So, Scott,
right.
I have a question for you. Or if anyone wants to take that, kind of going with like the youth thing. Like, so we always have like those teams that kind of like sneak up on us, like a Kentucky or Wake Forest, SMU, like some of these teams that are just doing like really, really well. Maybe we're not used to like see them doing that. What's a team, if you could like, from watching the games this year, it's like, oh, they're just a little too young, or like, oh, they're so close, or the young coach is like doing it. Like, what team would you predict to be like, okay, they're losing a lot of these games, but they're close. It's promising. I think this next year they're going to take that step and be in like a top 15 discussion.
This is difficult.
I think what makes this question so difficult too is the fact that a lot of teams are older because so many guys got the extra year of eligibility at the same time.
Good point.
I mean, that's an extremely difficult question.
And this one's for Alex. I'm gonna say Arkansas. I like what Sam Pittman's doing there, and I think that they're gonna be legit for a couple of years to come down the line. So there's my quick little answer.
Gotta hope so, right? I mean, we can only hope. But no, I'm with you. The talent's there. We're going to lose a lot from this year. Defensively, we're going to lose a lot. Burks is going to go pro for sure. But he's recruiting extremely well too. So I think, the days of, going 4-8, 3-9, days like that, days getting embarrassed, every week. Now I was turning games off in the first quarter for the last 3-4 years. So I think those days are over. So I think you're right on that. I think we're very experienced this year. We're not very youthful, but we're going to be in the future. but I don't think we're going to fall off any. So, yeah, I like that a lot. I want to mention, I don't know how roster-wise they're going to be next year, but Syracuse, they had like 3 straight losses by like 3 points. Florida State, Wake Forest. There's one more in there that I'm blanking on. So they had a lot of one-possession losses this year. Clemson, yeah. So we got 3 straight losses there all by a field goal. They win those. Syracuse is a 7-win team and probably a top 20, top 15 team right now. So they're right on the outside looking in.
Sean Tucker's back next year. Garrett Schrader's back, and those two have really I think they set some sort of record last weekend, but those two are really fun to watch. And Dino Babers might be getting back to his 2019 form or 2018 form, whatever it was.
He saved his job for sure. Sean Tucker, I think, single-handedly saved Dino Babers' job this year.
He did. And all right, O'Brien, you have an opinion, or who's the one who hates Scott Frost? I think it's you, O'Brien, right?
I don't hate Scott Frost. I posted a video and everybody assumed I hated Scott Frost back when those NCAA allegations came out. It's probably my most disliked video I've ever posted. But I think the weird thing about Nebraska is they've lost close this year, but Nebraska, I don't think is ever going to be this dominant team again that they were in the 90s. I mean, now that you have nationally televised games for most teams, Nebraska doesn't offer that same limits. You don't hear guys, oh, I want to go to Nebraska, especially these guys being born after the dominance of Nebraska early on in the 80s and 90s. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, they're never getting back to what they were. Neither is Tennessee, neither is USC, and neither is Miami.
I got a Scott Frost joke. I'm Scott Frost. Look at this. I don't know if anybody's caught on to this, but he's got a giant. It's his headset that he wears during games. Like the foam piece on it's way too big. Anyway,
the other interesting part of it too is Scott Frost was up for the Florida job when they were going through that hiring process that they ended up with Mullen, and doing research on that whole Florida hiring process. None of the Florida people thought Scott Frost was ready for a big job. So, I mean, maybe we're finally seeing him getting used to this big job, and maybe he can be the guy to turn around Nebraska. But I don't see Nebraska ever getting up to those heights consistently ever again.
I agree. Jackson, what is your thoughts on Big Ten playoff?
I saw Panthers. I thought we had an NFL question. I was like,
oh, yeah. I couldn't tell if that was Pitt or if that was.
Yeah, no, it's Pitt. I was like, I'm looking for Darnold or something.
No, it is. Yeah, it is. Carolina.
Well, I know Pitt has a former 4-star from Arizona State who's the backup to Pickett. I think he's the next guy. I think it's like Joey Yellen. Is that right, Alex?
That's right. Yeah, Joey Yellen's the backup right now. Yeah.
So I think he's next up. But Cole, you were a big North Carolina fan. Sam Howell for Heisman.
I was never a North Carolina fan. I swear on that. I thought they lost too much on offense, and I thought they were being overhyped. But I guess
I know.
I guess I am a North Carolina fan. Look at me go.
But Stetson for Heisman. Jackson Malone, what's your opinion?
That's
love him.
Bingo.
Absolutely love him.
You want to know why they call him the mailman? They call him the mailman because he always delivers, and that's right. Stetson's overlooked. He's tiny, but he gets the job done, and I like that about him. And he's reliable. He might not, be Bryce Young. He might not be C.J. Stroud. But I'll tell you this right now, he's Stetson Bennett, and he delivers. Thank you very much.
And I will say this on Stetson Bennett too. He needs to remain the starter at Georgia for the rest of the year unless he just starts to fall apart, right? Because Kirby's over here saying, we're going to see who plays better in practice. It's either him or JT Daniels. The reason Georgia's number one right now is their defense, obviously, but Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett has been the guy that's been their quarterback for pretty much the entire year, not JT Daniels. He can't stay healthy to save his life. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Bennett's delivering. He's playing well. Mistake-free football, 11 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Why change that? Why put in Daniels now? So I think you keep him there until proven otherwise.
Daniels will never play another snap. I swear he's made of glass. But I think you got a question to answer, Gridiron Expert.
I saved the dog from a house fire. That's true, actually. Yes.
Wow.
Michael. Yeah. Long time ago. So I'm actually surprised Michael remembered that. So yeah, thank you. Yes, please.
Shout out.
That's awesome.
Michael, you're welcome.
That is.
I hope Fido's doing well.
Was that really the dog's name?
Yeah, Fido.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's-
very original. Yeah, no.
All right, this is a good one for I think any of us to take a crack at. But who do you think would replace? And we're gonna go with O'Brien on this one.
I really don't have a good answer for that. I have not really gotten into as much looking at guys to take over, guys leaving for these bigger jobs yet. I mean, everybody's going to probably throw out Matt Campbell or Luke Fickell. I mean, I heard stuff. I mean, those guys are always tossed around for anything. Those names were also being tossed around if Mel Tucker leaves Michigan State. But I don't have a firm answer to go, I think it's going to be this guy, if I'm being completely honest.
I'm with you. Penn State's gotten kind of lucky with the coaches. They've had 2 elite coaches in a row to save them.
I just thought of someone. Do you think Bill O'Brien gets rehired at Penn State and comes back?
Exactly.
I mean, he turned that program around during a really bad time period.
Yeah.
He'll just go up and be like, all right, guys, you owe me one.
Or does Shiano come back?
I think Shiano's staying at Rutgers for the long run.
Yeah.
I got a name. Actually, I got 2. I was going to say Clausen at Wake. However, I think that Hafley could be a perfect candidate for Penn State.
I love Jeff Hafley. It could be what about Dave Aranda?
I don't know if you jump from Baylor to that.
I think Aranda's only leaving Baylor if it's for the LSU job.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Potentially, if they finish out their season like in a fantastic fashion, they could. Is that Stetson?
That's the picture.
Oh, wow. Look at that. He's got the
Look at
United
that.
States Postal Service hat on. Look at him. You can't make that up.
The Georgia fans were ready to kill him last year and force him to never step foot on campus again, and now he might win a title for him.
It just proves that all of us as sports fans, we're just very overreactionary. We're just having fun. It's week by week around these parts.
That's what it did.
I like Jurkic. I like him a lot, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good players on Penn State that aren't being utilized right now. But I think that starts with the quarterback spot. But obviously, I think a lot of you guys follow recruiting. I know Jonathan and Alex and Cole, you do, but Drew Allar is now the number one. I believe he's the number 1 quarterback in the class.
Drew Aller.
Drew Aller, okay. He's the number 1 quarterback in the class, I believe. So help might be on the way, or it could be another Hackenberg.
More of a pro style guy too.
But they lose Jahan Dotson to the NFL. Apparently, he was the number 1 receiver prospect, according to Mel Kiper.
Don't they have the best recruiting class coming in next year, Penn State?
As of now, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually?
I think so.
So
Wow.
this is why I feel like maybe James won't leave, potentially.
Oh, here's a
Urban
good one.
Meyer's like, sign me up. Get me the hell out of the NFL.
Can you
Tom
imagine?
Herman needs to go to the Nick Saban Rehabilitation Coaching Clinic.
Honestly, Tom Herman for Penn State. No cap.
Where is Herman right now?
I don't know.
He's
Enjoying his buyout.
yeah, he's enjoying his cash.
Yeah.
Taking a vacation.
Yeah, hopefully he's learning something while he's on the vacation.
Here's one from Alex Colburn.
Alex got that. Good. Yeah, take it away.
You could. I mean, look.
Bobby's your guy.
I love Bobby Petrino, man. I know a lot of people hate him. They like to hate on him. I'm not saying he's a good person, but I love him as a coach. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a guy that's passionate. He's a guy that's going to fire your team up. Loved him in Arkansas. I'm fully convinced that Arkansas would have been playing for a national championship in 2012 had that not happened. Had he not done that, we would have been the Natty in 2012.
It looks like his face is completely burned.
He couldn't keep the snake in the cage. So it just. But yeah, I think eventually he's going to find his way back to the FBS level. He's doing well at Missouri State right now. He'll find. I don't know. Penn State's probably too big a jump, but he'll be back up there pretty soon.
Wait, I saw a really good question about Aller that I'd be fine talking about if you don't mind, Scott.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting thing to talk about because Aller, it was never in any of his interviews speaking specifically about Penn State from what I saw when I researched him. It was all about his relationship with James Franklin. So I don't think he stays fully committed to Penn State, and depending on who the coach is. I could be completely wrong.
I love this year's quarterback class. I think Simpson's going to be good for Bama. I love Klubnik. I love Walker Howard.
Wow.
Mizzou got Sam Horn. There's a guy going to Rutgers. This year's class is going to be a lot of fun. But Alar, or Alar, whatever you said it is, has sort of kind of came out of nowhere. I remember he wasn't a 5-star for a while, but now he's arguably the best one.
I mean, they didn't have the camps last year, so he really wasn't on the radar because he really didn't get to fully start till his junior year. So he didn't have the sophomore to junior year film or the camp circuit to really build up his recruiting profile.
Yeah,
and he's like one of 2 quarterback commits at Penn State right now.
Yeah, they have a couple guys. Cole, Kirk Ferentz.
That's a great question. It feels like, being out of school for 20 years can, the game could pass you by, but I don't know. I feel like he's earned the right to keep going there. I mean, grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think that they should just keep milking it until, he gets like maybe it really falls off. He hasn't yet. I mean, they're still doing pretty well, so.
I saw they had like 2 coaches since like 1970.
It's great.
It's nuts.
Actually,
Cole, do you know an example of a 2-star guy who could be turned into an NFL prospect that Ferentz has molded?
Potentially, Kittle. Potentially, I think that might be it. But
you're overthinking the question, Cole. Who's someone on the roster?
Riley Moss. Yeah, my bad. I was definitely overthinking that one.
But Hawkinson and Fant are 2 good examples of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, here's a good one for Alex. You love this kind of topics. What's your opinion?
Oh yeah, I love quarterback controversies. Right now, how can you bench the guy that beat Alabama? How can you not give the job to Calzada, right? He looked horrible, against Colorado. Looked pretty bad against Arkansas. But he's gotten better as the year goes on. I think that's one of those things that comes with time, right? A&M's really finding their groove. I kept waiting. I've been waiting for them to fall off since the Alabama win. You kept waiting for that letdown game against Missouri, not against South Carolina, but they've been playing well, right? I think the true test will be in the next few weeks. If he plays well against Auburn, if he plays well against Ole Miss, even if they don't win those games, if he just plays well, I think you have to give him the job over Haynes King.
I agree, and King might be one of those unfortunate situations where he just never really plays and is a big what if. But,
I mean, they have Wigman coming in this recruiting class too.
Yeah. Wigman's gonna be good, but I got to answer this. I don't know why, but I've watched a lot of college football in my time. I've never been more excited for a game than this Michigan State game on Saturday. I think this is gonna be just an incredible game. Big Ten football in late October. 2 top 10 undefeated teams who are rivals. This is gonna be great. I want to say Michigan State, but I think Michigan's gonna pull it out in a close one and a heartbreaker to get back at the 2015 game.
The only reason I lean towards Michigan State, granted I didn't see the first half of this Michigan-Rutgers game because I was in Chicago at the time, but Michigan State kind of dominated Rutgers while Michigan struggled against Rutgers, and that's the only relatable opponents I could really think of off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, no. Cole.
Hi, what? Who I
question for you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be an exciting game. I'd say probably I think Michigan wins, but I mean, it's going to be close. I think that one goes like all the way down to the end. I think that one's going to be a great game.
And then the Michigan man himself, Jackson.
I'm going to be as unbiased as possible here. Michigan by 40. But no, I really do think Michigan's going to win. I think Harbaugh has been historically terrible in games he needs to win. And I really think he has like the team is like really, really stable enough to kind of like combat, because I mean, like we have Jalen Naylor like going for like 3 60-yard touchdowns. Like I think Harbaugh's like, I think their defense is just going to like not give those kind of plays up. So if Michigan State, and if it's going to come down to like who can be like more consistent, not turn the ball over, I think the Michigan defense is just going to cause 1 or 2 turnovers, and that's going to be the difference of the game.
It's going to be fun for sure. Let's toss this one to Alex, because you love quarterback controversy. You think Alar should start, or based on how well Taekwon played in that second half against Iowa, I think it's hard to.
He lit it up. He lit it up. I think that's something that whoever the coach is, because I'm with you. I don't know if James Franklin's going to be there. You could see them go with Alar because, as brand new coach, he just wants a fresh start. But I don't know. I think you got to go with Robertson right now. That's who I would go with. I think the talent there. You look at the game against Iowa, as bad as he was, he had nothing to work with. Got thrust into the second quarter, second half, on the road. All of his drives are starting inside his own 15. There's no room to work against one of the better defenses in college football right now. So give him a full offseason to work with the starters. Give him a full offseason to really get his stuff done. That's who I would start right now. He's got a decent arm. He's got some decent dual threat ability. So that's who I'm going with right now if I had to choose.
Amen. And there's a guy named Christian Valu who's also on the roster. Who knows what'll happen to him? Maybe Harrison Bailey goes there too. But Florida State versus Clemson. I mean, 4 weeks ago, if someone were to say this could be a game, I think they would have just buried you in the ground and told you to never watch a game the rest of your life. But what if Florida State wins this game?
They've already beaten North Carolina this year after losing to Jacksonville State in week 2?
Yeah.
In the most up and down team in the probably in the country this year.
This would be the most Clemson thing ever if they blow it to Florida State. But
this would be a new low for Clemson if they lose this game.
I'm all for Clemson missing a bowl game.
I mean,
I have a question for you guys. Okay, so this is kind of larger scope because this is literally I've been wanting to ask you guys this the whole time. We have 4 of the greatest YouTuber college football minds here right now. Can someone explain to me why we don't have an 8 or even a 16 team playoff?
Jonathan,
why in the world? How is that not I physically can't? I literally sit there, I was all this controversy of this team or this team. Just it's gonna be one more game. It's one more game. It's great for the fans. These teams that are sitting at 7 and 8, and now they get. Oh my! Okay. All right, I'll let you guys take it because you guys are the college football people. But please, someone explain to me how that makes sense.
Jonathan, you go first, then Alex, then Cole.
I think one of the biggest things is for the longest time we had these for actually years ago, decades ago. I mean, there wasn't even a national championship game in college. It was decided based off of pollsters. And then you had the BCS system, which was just 2 teams based off of a computer system that got so controversial. They went to the playoffs, and they always talked about expanding the playoffs. If I remember right, granted, what was that? When the playoffs first got released, what was it, 2013, and the first playoff was in 2014 or the 2014 season? I was 13, 14 years old at the time. To really, if I'm doing math right. But if I remember right, they were talking about eventually leading up, but they didn't want to go right away just because they wanted to see how the system worked. There's always been talks about expanding the playoffs. I mean, the FCS system has a 2014 playoff and all the other levels. But right now, the people who have the choices, because it's the same teams, a lot of the people in power aren't going to want to change it. And there's this whole argument it will ruin the regular season, which I kind of think is BS because when you have teams like Alabama playing New Mexico, that kind of shows it doesn't really matter.
Every team that's planning to make it, they're gonna have one of those out of conference games that's just completely garbage. And thinking professional sports, I think the most exclusive. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's baseball because I think only 10 teams get in. 10 out of 30.
And then they got the wild card.
It's either baseball or NHL. But basketball, you get these numbers, but college, there's thousands of teams. There's so many, and then we have 4. It's really such a joke to me that how can it be so and that's what they want. I feel as the brand, you want those playoff moments. You want that. That's why obviously you can't have a March Madness type of thing. That's way too many games. But I feel I can't think of a reason why they wouldn't push it. I feel they would want to push it just because it's it could be so profitable and exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback off of that too. I'll address RH5 too. I appreciate that. Yeah, feeling a lot better. I've been down for really sick for about the last 2 weeks, so I just now got back to posting, getting back into action. So no idea what it was, but I appreciate everybody over on our channel that commented that and all the well wishes and the emails and the comments we got meant a lot, and I appreciate it. So RH5, yes, doing a whole lot better. Obviously, wouldn't be here if we weren't feeling good. So yeah, we're ready to be back in action. But getting back to the playoff discussion, the playoff started really, the whole idea of that I don't think would have happened, or at least it would have taken a little longer, had Alabama not played LSU in the national championship back in 2011. Them meeting back in that BCS style that we had sparked the cause for the playoffs because they were like, they met in the regular season. We've got two teams from the same conference in Cincinnati. How is that possible? How is that fair? And then, ironically, a couple of years later, we're in the playoff and we get Alabama, Georgia. So it still happens. The playoff system, to me, is very flawed. I've never been a fan of the 4-team playoff. I never thought it was much of a playoff to begin with, and they screwed it up immediately in their first year without letting TCU in. And I know many people say that's because the Big 12 didn't have a championship game at that point, so that's what hurt their cause. But TCU was a top 4 team that year, and they got left out. And right then you knew the 4-team playoff was flawed. And every now and then we have that one team that comes in at 5 or 6 or whatever that gets left out that people thought should have been in. That last year people thought it was A&M. I disagree with that, but there's always going to be some sort of controversy. And my argument is it needs to be expanded. But whether you go to 8, whether you go to 16, there's always going to be 1 or 2 teams that are left out. If you go to 8, the guys that are 9 and 10 are left out, and they're going to be upset about that. You go to 16, you're going to have the guys. So no, you're not going to be able to make everybody happy. But I think you need at least an 8-team playoff right now. You can take your 5 conference champions if you want, the highest ranked group of 5 if you want, and then 2 at-large. I think that's the best setup for an 8-team playoff right now. A lot of it, as John was mentioning, was kind of testing the waters, right? All right, this is a huge, huge deal and a huge change for college football. So let's see how this works. How does the committee work? Is it going to be profitable? Are people going to like it? And eventually maybe we'll expand to more. Because like you said, the FCS has a 16-team playoff. They're doing it right. Every other sport, other than college football, I mean, NFL, all your pro sports have it. Your FCS, so your 1AA, they've all got it. Why can't the FBS do it right? And I know they're starting to inch towards that way. But go ahead, yeah.
How many years did it take for like a number 1 seed to actually win it once they introduced like the 4-team playoff? Because right away, I think Ohio State was a 4 seed and they won it like the first year, right? Or like
they did,
second
yeah,
or third year. Like that should prove you like right then, like okay, like it's been flawed. And like 1 year in, they should have been like okay, the last person in got in. Let's all right, let's look at this. Unless it's like they're under some sort of contract that like they signed like a 10-year thing with it. Like, but I don't know why they wouldn't.
ESPN signed a contract.
You brought up a ton of great points. I actually really I love that.
Yeah, I mean, they're under contract. But the problem is contracts are meant to be broken, right? And here's the thing: these multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar companies like ESPN and guys like that, they can alter these deals and change them in an instant, right? So I think it's a bunch of BS that they're like, oh, we have to honor our contract. Because you look at, Oklahoma and Texas, they're under contract with the Big 12, these TV deals. Well, guess what? All those things are changing because now they want to move the SEC. If they want it to happen bad enough, they can change it. The contract stuff's just a formality thing. If you want it bad enough, they'll make it happen. And right now they don't want it bad enough because we could, in theory, have an 8-team playoff by next year, but they're not getting it done.
I think the biggest thing too is you have 5 Power 5 conferences, yet 4 spots. The biggest conversation point that I heard throughout the summer was the Power 5 conferences don't want to include the Group of 5 conferences. I think the biggest flaw in the system we've seen multiple times already. You could have an undefeated team. For the people who say regular season matters, you go undefeated, and like Cole mentioned earlier, these schedules are made 10 years in advance and not even get a shot at the playoffs.
Right.
And that's the biggest issue I have with the whole system.
Like, what else can you do? Like, literally, what else can you do? Like,
no. What's the thing? I mean, what else can you do? I mean, I know we talked about it earlier. I don't want to get into that conversation again, but like UCF a couple years ago, 2 straight undefeated seasons, right? Back-to-back undefeated seasons. And I know maybe their strength of schedule wasn't great or whatever, but I could talk for hours about the strength of schedule thing because you're right. These schedules are made so far in advance. We don't know what these teams are going to be like. You schedule, say Alabama right now, they're great. Well, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, Alabama could fall off a cliff. We don't know. And I always make the argument too, the conference you're in, you can't help that. Like I made that argument with Clemson for the last few years. Everybody was dogging Clemson's strength of schedule and how bad it was. Clemson can't help that the ACC's trash, right? They couldn't help that the Atlantic Division with Florida State, NC State, Wake Forest were all mediocre and they were beaten up on. That's not their fault. They're in the conference they're in. And if you're a good enough team, you're going to take care of business against those weaker teams. If you're good enough, you're going to win by 20, 30, however. That shows how good you are. So the strength of schedule argument does hold some merit for some teams, but there are a lot of cases where it's like they can't help it. There's nothing that you can do about it.
No, I agree with with that. And I think you just have to go ahead and win your conference. Just do what you have to do to get to whatever 12 wins, like in the case of Clemson. I want to address this real quick. Everyone always talks about how it's going to ruin the regular season or it's going to ruin bowl games. I have a very stern opinion on this. With all the NIL stuff coming out, if you're a 5-star recruit, let's say you have really maybe 5 options: Oklahoma, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama, whatever the other, Ohio State, to go to the playoff and win a title. Now, all of a sudden, if the playoff is 8 teams, schools like Penn State, a school like Iowa, a school like Oregon, USC, all of a sudden they actually have more of a chance to get to the playoff. And then if you're a guy, do you want to go sit and be 4th string on the bench at Bama, or do you want to get a giant NIL deal at Penn State and also get a chance to play in the playoff? So you get the best of both worlds. So I think it'll actually make recruiting more balanced because it gives more exposure to, like, there's more games, so there's more exposure to that. And bowl games are terrible now. I mean, look at last year at North Carolina, Texas A&M. All 4 of the top guys opted out for North Carolina. I think pretty much everyone on Florida opted out. Like, to say that, like, I'm not going to miss – the bowl games don't even matter anymore. I don't even watch many of them anymore. So, I mean, yeah, I'd rather see 2 fringe top 25 teams play than a bunch of good teams that have all their players opting out. I think overall expanding the playoff to even 12 or 16 is perfectly fine. I'm not going to complain about more football.
No, never.
And think of the on-campus, like the first-round games being on campus and the level of excitement and sellout crowds and craziness that we love of college football that will bring to the whole situation.
I agree. Like, imagine Michigan versus USC in the opening round, like the games at USC. Like, there's just so much more fun. I don't really care for neutral site games. I know, Cole, you have an opinion on that, don't you?
Dude, I hate neutral site games. They're the death of college football and college sports, really. Like,
Take the mic, Cole.
Man, I cannot tell you how frustrated I get by neutral site games. Now, I will say there's one good thing about it, and it's the fact that 2 schools get to come together. They're 2 fan bases in a random city and party for the weekend. You know, that's kind of cool. But other than that, there's really nothing good about them. And it just frustrates me. I hate them. Like, whenever I look at a schedule, I'm always like, oh my God, they're playing them. And then I realize, wait, it's at a neutral site. And, that's not fun. I try to go as, like, what I want to do going forward is just go to as many neutral site games as I can. I went to, or not neutral site games. I meant like home and homes. I know for a fact Ohio State plays at, Notre Dame comes to Ohio State next year. Oregon came to Ohio State this year. They go to Washington in a couple of years, and Alabama and Ohio State have a home and home in like 2027, 28. I know that's far away, but like those are the ones that I can really think of. But like, those are awesome. There's nothing better, really. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that.
As a Badger fan, we got Alabama in Tuscaloosa in a few years. Alabama's coming to Wisconsin at some point.
That's awesome. See, I love that. That, honestly, one real quick thing. Home and home games in college football are my favorite thing in any sport. Like, any type of matchup, they're rare. You don't see them very often. I mean, Penn State and Auburn, like, Auburn hadn't gone to a Big Ten school in like 70 years or something like that. It was some crazy stat. Like, the fact that hasn't happened, Auburn, like one of the best programs in college football, it's just annoying. I hate home and home or non-conference games. I keep mixing them up. I hate
neutral site.
Neutral site. Thank you. I'm so frustrated. God, they make me so mad. But
I know.
Home and home's amazing. Neutral sites are horrible. I hate everything about them. Okay, cool.
I will say one thing, though. Staying with the Badger stuff, Wisconsin does play Notre Dame at Lambeau Field. They just played them in Chicago. I was at the game. I am excited to see like a matchup like that at Lambeau Field. Like situations like that where they're historical stadiums.
That's fair.
Are a little cool to see.
And they're both pretty close.
Yeah, that's true too. If they're close to each other, that's fine. But like Oregon and Auburn playing in Atlanta at the Falcons Stadium, like, that's dumb. Like,
yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of Florida and Georgia playing a neutral site too.
Yeah, those annoy me as well.
I think that's more of a historical thing though than a.
No, yeah, but like I know Clemson and Georgia did like a home and home in like 2013 and 2012, like, but this year is in Charlotte.
Yeah,
like, we need more of that.
Yeah, those are the best. Like
Notre Dame and Georgia, home and home.
Yeah, like even looking back, those are the games that always come to my mind. Like when I when somebody says, "Hey, what's your favorite college football games ever?" It's like I think of those instantly, and they're usually good matchups. It's like even Auburn Penn State this year was a good matchup. Like that came down to the wire. It just seems like there's a different vibe. Like home and homes are actually like always pretty close. It feels like if it's between two top teams, it doesn't seem like it is a huge advantage. Just my opinion. I mean, there's plenty of cases where I could be wrong on that, but it feels like the ones that are in my mind, they're always usually pretty close.
Hey, I appreciate you tuning into today's video, Frank.
Hey, I'm in my parents' guest room right now.
Hey, we should invite Frank on and see what he looks like.
Yeah, I'd love to.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But okay, here's. Yeah, no, the game unfortunately will never be. I think it'd be really cool to see the game in Athens and the game in Gainesville, but it's not going to happen. That's one of the few that gets a pass. But the Chick-fil-A kickoff's boring. I mean, every year Bama plays some ACC school, it seems, and they kill them. And Duke, Miami, I don't know who else it was, but I just don't. There's just the problem with college football is the regular season's so much fun, but the playoff is just so predictable. It's Bama, Clemson meeting in the title, Oklahoma getting killed in the first round, Ohio State showing up one year. It's just that, and then there's like not really any pageantry to the tournament. Like the NCAA tournament is so much fun because so many teams have a chance. Like the crowds really show out, and like there's like true upset energy. But with the college football playoff, there's none of that.
With college football playoffs, why I think it's so good, because you have to think about like the casual fan versus like someone that like really studies the game or is like gonna watch anything. If you're really, really into college football, you're going to watch all the fringe 25 teams play in a bowl game if you're really into that. But the casual fan watching a playoff game, once it's like labeled that, they're going to watch 1-8, 2-7. Like they're going to watch every single game. So I think it's just so much better. And it brings like that energy and excitement that I think like the like playoffs in general, or not playoffs, like the postseason in general, like really doesn't bring. Like no one wants to watch like the Bush's Baked Beans Bowl. Like everyone wants to watch like.
You're not excited
like
for the Barstool Bowl this year?
Oh, there's a Barstool Bowl?
Yeah.
Didn't they take over the Arizona Bowl?
I think so, yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
I prefer the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. I don't know about that.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And they're Tony the Tiger Bowl.
Oh yes.
I missed the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. That
was
jitney.
the best.
Yeah.
I don't know when Mizzou will play in Kansas City, but I remember the last time they did, it was against BYU back in 2015, and it was Pinkles last year. And I think they used to play Kansas there. That rivalry needs to be renewed. Don't you agree with that, Cole?
Which one, Kansas, Mizzou?
Yeah.
Of course. It's awesome.
Mark Mangino.
Oh, even though he's not the coach there, Leipold's the coach now. But, Mark Mangino, he might be like, when I think of historical college football figures, I think of Saban. I think of,
Bear Bryant.
Yeah, Bear Bryant. Thank you. Those guys, and then Mark Mangino. He's right up there.
He should be on the Mount Rushmore. I totally
really
agree with that.
Yeah. When I think of college football, I think of him. So
Chad Morris deserves a mention as well.
Oh, 100%. Front and center, really.
Chris Ash, another good one. Charlie Strong.
Yeah, honestly, Steve Wilkes has put himself in that conversation this year at Mizzou. Like,
Man, imagine going from the head coach of an NFL team to being fired from the defensive coordinator spot at a college team in like 2 or 3 years. I feel bad for Wilkes.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It really is bizarre.
What's your takeaway been this year of Mizzou, Alex?
I've had higher expectations for him. Although I've never been a fan of Drinkwitz. I was never a huge fan of him to begin with. It's that higher. So he exceeded expectations last year. I thought he was I thought he was an idiot personally. I'm sorry, Scott. I don't mean to be too harsh, but so go 5-5. I'm like, hey, ain't bad. But yeah, this defense has been historically bad. So
it's been terrible.
Yeah, it's been hard to watch. Really, it has. I thought the offense would be better. I thought Bazelite would play better. It's just been a dumpster fire for the majority of the year.
It's been absolutely terrible. It's always the noon SEC Network game too, so there's just no fun to it. But yeah, I think if Kansas and Mizzou matched up, I think it'd be closer than the experts think.
Well, yeah, obviously they're both bad right now. I think it would be pretty close.
But
Scott told me a few days ago he wanted Missouri to go back to the Big 12.
I think the SEC, especially basketball, it's just killed the Mizzou basketball program. Just who cares about going to a Mizzou Ole Miss game? Like back in the day, most teams that came to Mizzou Arena were a rival or in driving distance, or they had like beef with. Now it's just some boring game against South Carolina where there's who wants to go watch that?
I mean, if I lived close, I would, but I've never been there. But yeah.
And another home and home we didn't touch on was Oregon, Ohio State. They were supposed to play last year, but of course that game got canceled. Let's see if there's any other good.
Are they going to reschedule the game at Oregon?
They are. No.
Probably not.
It's a shame. It really is. This is another gripe I have with college football is like the fact that they can come up with like games on the blank like last year, like Coastal playing BYU. You know how awesome that was? Like that. Honestly,
I want to do a video on that. That was the game of the year last year, man.
It really was. Like that. It's the fact that they could write that contract like that, yet we have to schedule so far in advance. I think this is the one good thing that could come with realignment is potentially schedules getting created like with better clarity. You know what I'm saying? Like not so far in advance. That's another frustrating thing. Like I want to see Alabama and Ohio State play home now and not like 10 years from now when both Ryan Day and Nick Saban are probably both out of there.
You're telling me you're not excited about Nebraska versus LSU in 2034?
I don't even know if, of course they've been born, but man, they probably, honestly, John, I'm not excited for that. I'm just going to be honest.
What about Alabama versus Abilene Christian or whoever they're going to play in week 13?
Abilene Christian. They can pull off some upsets in March Madness, but I don't think they're pulling off an upset over the Crimson Tide in football.
Jackson, what's your opinion? Since you're more of an NFL guy, what's your opinion on how college differs from the NFL?
In what way? Like the play style, or like in
just like the passion and like the atmosphere of games and where the site, how that matters.
So that's what I was going to say about neutral site games, because college football, it makes absolutely no sense, because I enjoy NFL more for the product that's on the field. But what you can't take away from college football is like literally they hate each other. Like they physically, like the teams like despise each other. Like NFL, like you'll be dapping each other up like after the games. There's no love like on the college football field. And I feel like it's more of like a community centered thing. So like your fan base is kind of like around that state. Like if you're in that state, I feel like it's a lot more common for like, let's say I like live in California, but I'm a Ravens fan, like I feel like a neutral site game could be like a lot more, because I feel like there's a lot of NFL fans scattered like all across. Whereas like in college, I feel like it's a lot more like pockets, and like what makes the product so good about college football is the atmosphere. So that's what I was going to bring up when we were talking about like neutral like sites. Like I think it's terrible just because like that's the advantage of college football. And that's like the energy like you get when you watch a college football game, because like it's not going to be as like professional or as perfect, but it's like the raw emotion that like these like literally 18 to 22-year-old kids have. Like they hate the other team. Like they just got out of high school, but like you get a vet in the NFL for like 10 years. They're like buddies with everyone. They've probably played with half the people. Like it's just it's like a really different atmosphere.
Yeah, I'd agree. I still think the NFL has great atmosphere. I know people kind of make fun of it a lot, but I mean, I've seen plenty of NFL games get pretty damn loud. Same with college. I mean, heck, NFL games this year have been way more competitive than college. I mean, okay, this year's been pretty crazy with college, but like I think that people give NFL a bad rep when it comes. I just think their games aren't as memorable because they all kind of blend into each other, because it's professional football, where college these games are built like so many years in advance. There's a lot of hype leading up to them. It's very easy to remember the big games and the big moments. But like the NFL is very competitive every week, and I mean, I think that people give the NFL a bad rep when it comes to like not having a good atmosphere.
That was, besides this past week, literally the first 6 weeks of the NFL have been fantastic. But then I saw like all the people that had the bye weeks, I'm like, oh no, like, and I saw some of the matchups, I was like, this could get ugly. I think the 10 a.m. like all the 10 a.m. games, like by literally 11:30, or wait,
it'd be 1 o'clock for us.
Oh yeah. So the 1 o'clock games, like literally by like an hour and a half later, like none of them were within a possession. Like, and it didn't look like it was gonna like change anytime soon. But the NFL this year has been insane. I feel like just like very similar to like college football, like a lot of these like the top people that you thought were going to be at the top, or you're used to being at the top, like shout out your Patriots, but
we're coming back. Mac Jones, baby, he's the future. Let's go, let's get it.
I'm a Lions fan. I really can't say anything, but yeah, I feel like it's definitely been a super, super exciting year for Saturday and Sundays. Like literally, if you just want to cave out all weekend and that's how you want to spend it, it has been time well spent because there's been so many overtime games and like it's been amazing.
Hey, poor Dan Campbell, man. Poor Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Dude,
I haven't seen him bust a kneecap yet. I'm still waiting on that.
That's probably why they haven't won yet. Honestly.
Bro, I'm waiting for him to put a helmet on. I feel like he's just gonna he's gonna run out there, bro. He is fired up. That dude scares me when he does interviews sometimes, but he's exciting because what I see is him. Like when I see, if I want to talk about like coaches that like go from college to the NFL, because what the big difference is like why I think Urban Meyer might be struggling like a little bit more than I think someone like a Luke Fickell who like went to Cincinnati, not a dominant program, not like the biggest draw for like recruits. So you have to take these guys and make them into the best selves. Like I really think like college football could be getting the best recruits and then having like kind of like an offensive guru that like does that. But like why I think people would fail, why I think the Luke Fickell will do a lot better than what it is because they're a lot better at getting the best out of the people, whereas someone like Urban Meyer was just getting the best people.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Because recruiting is so much. And also, we do forget, Scott, you mentioned it earlier, we do forget the Jaguars do have ETN. The number one reason you said Clemson you think is like struggling this year, the Jaguars have him. So we do forget.
Isn't he hurt right now, though?
Yeah,
he got hurt preseason. We never got to see him. I think it was like a preseason game. Yeah. No, it was unfortunate. But I really think Urban wouldn't be getting as much hate as he didn't have all the expectations. I mean, they won one game last year. Like they're expecting him to like literally they were asking him to take the USC job. That team won one game all last year. They lose one game and everyone's like, oh, go back to the college. It's like, all right, give him some time. He's like, this is not a very good situation. He didn't make it any easier on himself with, the things, the things that went on, but I've heard he's a better dancer than he is a coach. So,
yeah, which I didn't even realize. I didn't know that about him, but then you found that out. Good for him in some aspects. But,
I didn't even know he had his own bar or restaurant like that. Shout out to him.
I mean, I'm just excited to see what kind of medical injury or history will come up this year.
Yeah, there you go.
Broken hips. Dance. All right. Well, anyway, Urban. Woo, go Meyer.
Yeah. But yeah, so that I really think there is like a huge difference between like the NFL and college and like kind of what you're like drawn to and like what you like appreciate more is like how I can definitely like see like if you're drawn to one or the other or both, like if you just like really appreciate both. But if you want to study it like at a level, you kind of have to pick one because it's like it's a lot. Urban's gonna grind.
All right. Well, honestly, I think we've kind of reached a stopping point for tonight's live stream, but it was definitely a lot of fun. Be sure to go ahead before this is over, go subscribe to Cole, Jackson, Alex, and Jonathan's channel. It's in the description for this stream. And since you guys, we had about 60 to 70 to 80 people pretty much the whole time. You guys obviously liked it, so we should do this a little bit more. Definitely a good time, and we'll definitely see you. We'll all be uploading a lot. It's football season, so hopefully you guys enjoy our videos.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Scott.
Absolutely.
This was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Scott.
Definitely got to do it again. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys later.